let's get into it. Coach Colin News here. Let's just get right into it. Tucker Carlson is giving a speech, and recently I've been researching a lot about what's going on in Brazil. There was a speech that I just listened to that one of the youngest congressmen in Brazil gave to the UN, and because of what he had to say about the radical left and woke culture, he's now under investigation, and who knows what will happen to him from there. And then I heard Tucker talking about this, and I think it's, in terms of people who watch the channel, you'll see from the videos that I'm doing right now, it's so important to have this conversation of knowing people by their fruits and what they actually want to see happen in the world. Tucker is touching on the fact that, back in the day, you were two sides in the political parties, Democrats, Republicans, and the debates and the conversation that would be going on would be leading to what seemed like the best course of action for the nation. And it no longer seems like that. And I'll have Tucker break it down, and then I'll go further into it, but it's really something to think about. What are the objectives? When you see what's going on in the world, what are the actual objectives for the people who are putting these policies in place? What are they actually trying to accomplish? Is this what they feel is best for us? Let's get into it.
Here's the second thing I'd like to say before I get to the conversation with Dr. Roberts, which is that it might be time to start to reassess the terms we use to describe what we're watching. So when I started at Heritage, the presumption was, and this is a very Anglo-American assumption, that the debates we're having are kind of rational debates about the way to get to mutually agreed upon outcomes, right? So like we all want the country to be more prosperous and free and people to be less oppressed or whatever. And so we're going to argue about tax rates, and I think higher tax gets us there. I'm a Keynesian, and you disagree, you're an Austrian or whatever. But the objective is the same. And so we write our papers and they write their papers, and may the best papers win. I don't think that's what we're watching now at all. I don't think we're watching a debate over how to get to the best outcome. I think that's completely wrong. And I've come to this conclusion, and I should say at the outset, I'm an Episcopalian, so don't take any theological advice from me, because I don't have any. I grew up in the shallowest faith tradition that's ever been invented. It's not even a Christian religion at this point, I say with shame. But I'm just saying this as an observer of what's going on. There is no way to assess, say, the transgenderist movement with that mindset. Policy papers don't account for it at all. If you have people who are saying, I'm going to castrate the next generation with sexually mutilated children, I'm sorry, that's not a political debate. What? There's nothing to do with politics. What's the outcome we're desiring here? An androgynous population? Is that really what are we arguing for that? I don't think anyone could defend that as a positive outcome. But the weight of the government and a lot of corporate interests are behind that. Well, what is that? Well, it's irrational. If you say, well, I think abortion is always bad. Well, I think sometimes it's necessary. That's a debate I'm familiar with. But if you're telling me that abortion is a positive good, what are you saying? Well, you're arguing for child sacrifice, obviously. It's not about a teen girl gets pregnant and what do we do about that and victims of rape. I get it. Of course I understand that, and I have compassion for everyone involved. But when the Treasury Secretary stands up and says, you know what you can do to help the economy? Get an abortion. Well, that's like an Aztec principle, actually. There's not a society in history that didn't practice human sacrifice. Not one. I checked. Even the Scandinavians, I'm ashamed to say. It wasn't just the Mesoamericans, it was everybody. So that's what that is. What's the point of child sacrifice? Well, there's no policy goal entwined with that. No, that's a theological phenomenon. And that's kind of the point I'm making. None of this makes sense in conventional political terms. When people or crowds of people, or the largest crowd of people at all, which is the federal government, the largest human organization in human history, decide that the goal is to destroy things, destruction for its own sake. Hey, let's tear it down. What you're watching is not a political movement, it's evil. So if you want to assess, and I'll put it in and I'll stop with this, I'll put it in I'll put it in non-political, or non-specific theological terms, and just say, if you want to know what's evil and what's good, what are the characteristics of those? And by the way, I think the Athenians would have agreed with this. This is not necessarily just a Christian notion. This is kind of I would say, widely agreed upon understanding of good and evil. What are its products? What do these two conditions produce? Well, good is characterized by order, calmness, tranquility, peace, whatever you want to call it, lack of conflict, cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness. It's true, it is. And evil is characterized by their opposites: violence, hate, disorder, division, disorganization, and filth. So if you are all in on the things that produce the latter basket of outcomes, what you're really advocating for is evil. That's just true. I'm not calling for religious war, far from it. I'm merely calling for an acknowledgement of what we're watching, which is not one, and I'm certainly not backing the Republican Party. Ugh. I'm not making a partisan point at all. I'm just noting what's super obvious. Like, those of us who are in our mid-50s are caught in the past in the way that we think about this. One side's like, no, I've got this idea, and we've got this idea, and let's have a debate about our ideas. They don't want a debate. Those ideas won't produce outcomes that any rational person would want under any circumstances. Those are manifestations of some larger force acting upon us. It's just so obvious. It's completely obvious. And I think two things. One, we should say that and stop engaging in these totally fraudulent debates where we are using the terms that we used in 1991 when I started at Heritage, as if maybe, I could just win the debate if I marshaled more facts. I've tried that, doesn't work. And two, maybe we should all take just like 10 minutes a day to say a prayer about it. I'm serious. Like, why not? And I'm saying that to you, not as some kind of evangelist. I'm literally saying that to you as an Episcopalian, the Samaritans of our time. I'm coming to you from the most humble and lowly theological position you can. I'm literally an Episcopalian, okay? And even I have concluded it might be worth taking just 10 minutes out of your busy schedule to say a prayer for the future, and I hope you will.
And to that I will say, even if prayer isn't your thing, because a lot of people will hear prayer and they get thrown off, even just speaking about it, even just speaking about where the future looks like it's going, if that's a future that you want to see, if that's a future you're okay with having your kids step into, even just speaking about it with someone for 10 minutes a day, or thinking about it, for those of you that are just like, oh, prayer is off limits, that type of thing, just think about it, talk about it, make it a point of conversation, because it is valuable to do that. Now, the things that he brought up are so true, especially, and I would love to be able to interview Tucker and have him expand on the good versus evil, because he keeps touching on it briefly. Even when he's talking about aliens, he touches on this. I think they're always here, and I think they're similar to angels and demons. Like, he keeps touching on this good and evil concept, and I wish I could just hear him talk longer about that. That's why I'm hoping that he's on Joe Rogan's podcast soon. Now, the things that he's talking, like, think about just knowing them by their fruit of what they do. Like he talked about, you're supposed to have the best in mind for the nation. So what's the best thing for the nation? Well, we'll think about, the one president had the border secure, not super secure. In Trump's presidency, there were, I think it was 1.2 million that got through in all the years, not just 1 year, in all the years, illegally, that were processed. And by processed, I mean they got in. He handled things a little different, but it wasn't exactly the same as what Biden's doing. So Then all of a sudden someone else comes in. What do you think their thought process is? Again, what's best for the nation? They let in, that we know of, about 8 million. Around there, maybe 8.2. Is that what's best? Texas secures their border themselves. They take it upon themselves. They get the manpower, they get the barbed wire, all that stuff. Then that same person says, no, undo all that. We want the people to flow in. Think about like what's best for the nation. Why are they doing this? And then looting and stealing. Think about the places that are allowing that. Is there just two sides that are debating back and forth for what's best for the nation? Or is it one side and, hey, listen, I have a bias, lean towards Trump, I'm right leaning. Maybe somebody who's left leaning has something different to say, whatever, what have you. But it seems like one side seems to be doing things that are not in the best interest of people. And the other side is saying, what are you doing? What's going on? We have to now defend free speech. We have to be the people who are anti-war. What's happening? I thought we had a deal. You guys were anti-war, freedom of speech. You guys were like hippies. We were the law and order types who wanted more policy, more. What happened? It's like one side just went off the deep end. The looting, the stealing, is that what's best for the nation? Defunding the police so they feel like they're hogtied every time they step into a situation and they can't do anything about it. They walk in with not just the one threat of their regular job and anything can happen, but this other threat that's outside of them where they can do the wrong thing and then all of a sudden they get fired, they lose their job, lose their money, lose their pension. It was defunding the police. Was that the best thing for the nation? With what's going on with kids today, what they're being exposed to in the schools, is that what's best for a nation? You know, you think of Canada. Canada was assisting people in passing away. They have a program, and the program fell through because they couldn't find enough doctors without a conscience to be doing this type of thing. But that's what they wanted. And then Tucker says, what message does it send when the borders open? What message does it send to the law-abiding citizens when you allow stealing and looting and people can just walk in and just take things and then everybody else is supposed to pay? Are you trying to provoke everybody to just steal and run rampant? What are you saying to a community when you defund the police? What are you saying to a community filled with minorities, to a black community, to a hood where you say there's going to be less police? You're kind of saying to them, you should probably join a gang. Should probably get involved with the gang. I don't know, move away. I don't know. But we don't care enough about you to make sure that there's more police here. We don't care. That's it. We don't care that you pay for things, and when you see people not paying for things and knocking people over and knocking things over, we don't care if that scares you. We don't care. We don't care if the border's open. It doesn't matter. Yeah, we're going to let those people in. Yeah, we don't know who they are. Doesn't matter. Whatever. What message does all of this send to people? You know, you see so many parents in these parent-teacher conferences, and they're like, my kid saw this and this. They're reading pages from the book, and what's in these books in the schools are things that I can't even say on this platform. What message are you sending to the masses? Think about it. Tucker Carlson said it perfectly. Oh, well, if you want to help the economy, you know, do away with child. Do away with that. You know? You know, there was a meme going around with Canada's assisted ending of yourself. There was a meme going around where it said, in every country had their thing. Like, have you thought about taking this? Have you thought about therapy? Have you thought about this? And then, you know, in Canada's, it was like a doctor talking to someone. Like, you thought about ending your life? It's very interesting. Very interesting. That message that they're sending. Right? And then again, when you look, and I've talked about this before too, good and evil, right? Law and order is actually a good thing. Somehow, within this society, within this time, it's been demonized. Having peace in the streets is a good thing. having calm, having cleanliness, not just cleanliness of a body, cleanliness of a street, not having a street filled with people and whatever comes out of them. Having that's a good thing. Somehow, this side that's in control right now, the left, has somehow demonized those things and has somehow made disorder seem like the right thing to do. And hate is something that they thrive on. It's so many of them employ themselves based on DEI programs and anti-racist and anti-white training and all these different things. They've made dividing people something that's completely acceptable and necessary. They've made anxiety at the forefront of things because that's also part of evil. They made depravity. Just, it's fine to be depraved and to be involved in all this weird deviancy. It's fine. In fact, you're just finding yourself. And if anybody has anything to say about it, they're a hater, or they're sexist, or they're misogynistic, or they're just an old white man. Don't worry about him. And then the violence. Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, there were riots in his streets. He refused to call it a riot. He just said it's a gathering and that we shouldn't be so judgmental of those people that were in those crowds. They're just young people. They were just gathering. They lit cars on fire. So what does the message send to everybody? New York, what is the message? For years, homelessness is an issue. People are living in poverty. And then all of a sudden, this mayor comes through, Mayor Adams, says, hey, we got $53 million. We're going to give it over to the illegal immigrants who have just come over. We're going to give it to them in the form of debit cards. Let's do it. What is that? What message did that send to everybody? And there's just countless things that you can go over. What is the message that these people are trying to send? There is no more, I shouldn't say, I still want there to be debate. I still want there to be finding common ground. But it seems like one side is trying to do things that are opposite of what's good for the nation. And I don't know if they're doing it in the sense of virtue signaling to the utmost extent, or if there's a hatred towards the initial values of a Christian nation, of the country. I don't know what it is, but it's very apparent. So I just, all of that just came to mind when I heard Tucker talking about this. It's so true. What are these messages they're trying to send? Tucker Carlson was in an interview. He's actually said this in a couple interviews where he talks about architecture. He even talked about it when he was in Russia. And he talks about how, and it's so true. I was looking at this church in Spain. I think it was in Spain. And it was this gorgeous, huge church. And it was just there. It was just on your block. You're just walking down the street, there's a church. But it was big and massive and immaculate and pointed and just perfect looking. It looked crazy. It looked like AI, but it wasn't. It was real. They've been working on it for like 140 years or something. And when you see something like that in your community, you instantly have more respect. You have more respect for your community. You have more respect for the cleanliness around it. You have more respect for the people that are walking by. You have more respect for yourself. You hold yourself in a different air. As opposed to when you have this just block building. It's just a block building. The windows are dark and very sparse, and it's dirty all over. You don't respect that. Actually, I was just having a conversation with he was talking about, I shouldn't jump. Let me stay on Tucker's point. He was talking about the architecture, and that's so important. And when you have these blocks everywhere, these blocks set up for everybody, in terms of the architecture, it's disrespectful to the community. It sends a message, in his words, it sends a message of just get in your box and do your job and go home to your box. Just, that's it. But when things are beautiful, it shows that people have taken time to make sure that where you walk and where you live and what you see is absolutely beautiful. The messages that are sent through what these people do, these people in power, what they do, what they say, are very loud, much louder than we're taking into account. I was just going to say, I was having a conversation with my friend today, and I was talking about how I've never lived in a big city. I've always lived in suburbs and like far from a city. Like you got to go like 2 hours to get to a city. I've always liked it like that. And that's how I always want it to be. I don't like big cities. And I was talking to him about how there must be some kind of psychological impact of living in places like that are just cities. That just no grass, no trees, just concrete everywhere. There has to be some psychological thing that it changes in a person, as opposed to somebody who is not like me, doesn't live in a suburb, but lives like deep in the bush, and they have beautiful trees and everything around, and there's just everything is greenery. I don't know. You have a certain connection. That's what he was saying. He's like, it connects you to the earth more. When there's beauty around you, it connects you to your community more. When children are treated a certain way, it connects everybody better. When we go over all these things I just brought up, the border, the looting, the stealing, the police, the kids, when all of those things are handled in a great way, it connects everybody more. And it goes back to what I was saying in regards to good and evil. In evil, there's divide, heavy divide. They're not looking for peace. They're not looking for unity. So just think about what message is being sent. That's the only reason I'm making this video. What message is being sent to you as you look around, as you hear things in the news? Think about that. That's all I wanted to say. Anyways, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm out.